Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host, the expert Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 227. Hope you've had an amazing week as always. I really do, and it's a beautiful day here. I'm sitting here, do you know what? And I'm looking at trees, I'm looking at ocean, I'm looking at mountains. And I was sitting here this morning, and I was just looking at all these things, and I was thinking, not one of those things cost $1 or £1 or whatever the heck you're listening to this from, but they don't cost anything. It's pretty crazy. I was actually listening to a Joe Rogan podcast the other day. I can't even remember who the guest was, to be honest, but it was an interesting principle. You know who it was. It was Brian Callen, his mate Brian Callen. And I was listening. They were talking about, just wealth and accumulation and levels where they are in their careers. And it was interesting because I think Brian Callen was saying he doesn't have anything expensive. And meaning that if someone broke into his house, they wouldn't find anything. He hasn't got shiny, expensive watches, or he just doesn't have those things. And it was really interesting because they were talking about the size of houses. And Rogan obviously is doing all right, and he lives in this big house, but he's lived in there for a long time. And Brian was saying, he doesn't really care about the house. Doesn't really care about the house. And he goes, what he's found over the years is that you just get used to however big the house is. If the house is like a little studio, then that's it, right? And you just go to your kitchen, go to the bathroom, go to your bed, go where you work from. That's it, right? And it don't matter what the size of the house, you adjust so quickly. And that really made me think because, again, another guest. I'm not doing too well with the details here, right? But what he was saying is this. The person didn't care about the size of the house, but what the most essential thing was a view. And what's the view? Well, is the view, it might be the city. I suppose that's man-made, and that could be absolutely true. But more than likely, the thing that is going to make you content is the view of nature. Do you know what I mean? It's nature. And it started to really make me think about what's important. And not a few weeks ago in Panama, I went to the interior, as they call it, the inside, the rainforest. And it was crazy. We went to a friend of ours' farm, his family's farm, and they've got lots of land, and it's just raw land, but it's crazy because every one of us who went is growing businesses, whether it's online, in person, and everyone's doing good, Everyone's at different stages, and we all can relate to the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. I'm sure you can too. But we went there, and it was amazing because it was like you just decompressed. Instantly just decompressed. I felt so at peace within minutes of being there. And one of the biggest things I've really strove to make sure is in my life is sun. Why? Because I grew up in the UK. Beaches. Why? Because I grew up in the UK. And being able to be around nature all the time. Why? Because I grew up in a town. And when you can start to really get clear on what makes you content and happy, then it becomes so simple. And for me, the biggest thing there was, it's absolutely surrounded by nature. But it was a hammock. The hammock must have been, a $10 hammock? But I just, in my brain, right, maybe it's because I've been away such a long time now from the UK, but it's like a hammock. Like, I always grew up, and you see those pictures of people in hammocks next to the beaches, in these, on TV and movies and all the rest of it. And to me, when I was growing up, that was so far away from what I knew. It was so radically far away from what I knew that got locked into my brain as the symbol, which means that you are free. That you're on holiday or vacation, right? Or you're just in a tropical country. or by the beach. So I've spent all my life getting really clear on the things that make me happy. And it's so interesting because I had a client not so long come back to me, and I've shared this in groups that I run and with personal clients. But it was so interesting because they were going through IPO. Their company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And he's been a client for a long time, on and off. Which in itself always makes me laugh, because the thing that creates absolute world-class performance is by constantly fine-tuning your brain, which gives people the results, and then they think they're okay. And instead of keeping that muscle pumping, they go back to doing what they were doing before, and they slip back into all the old patterns, right? Hence why people come to me on and off. But the people who keep getting the constant leveling up, driven success, doesn't matter what level you're at, but that driven success, guess what? They're constantly fine-tuning their brain with me. Always makes me laugh, because it's like going to a personal trainer for a year and then pumping yourself up and then not training for another 3 years and expecting to have the same results. Doesn't quite work. Anyway, back to my random rant. Love this guy, by the way. Love this guy. And he came back to me because, doing IPO, which if you don't understand what that is, that's floating on the stock exchange. And so you've got to have a reasonably big company, successful company. Lives in this beautiful house overlooking, I'm not even going to tell you the locations just in case people recognize him, but the house is absolutely beautiful. And looking in from the outside, everything, it would just seem like magic, right? The dream. You live in the dream. But it's so interesting because, again, he said that it had been the most stressful 2 years of his entire life, right? And the house means nothing. It means nothing. For the simple fact, what's the point in having a big, beautiful house when you're walking in there, around there, just stressed out in your head, feeling constant pressure, right? And not performing the way you know you should. Makes sense? So back to my nature. Everybody can have that. Everybody can have that. And the view that made that house he was talking about so special was the view, but the view is nature. So if you're not surrounding yourself with nature, and you might be listening to this going, Andy, I live in the middle of a city, or Andy, it's freezing outside, man. I get it, right? But you get my point. And there's so much studies around the harmonization of the frequency around nature with grounding and that type of stuff, which, hey, topics for another time. But my challenge to you is, let's keep it simple, right? We'll talk about chemicals and neurology later, but keeping it simple. How many times a week are you actually spending time in nature or by yourself? And even if you're meditating, or your meditation's really, really deep, or your visualization's really, really deep, are they creating the emotional response that you want? Are they creating the excitement and the drive and the belief and the clarity on the next steps, or the communication in your business? Are you becoming that best version of you? Maybe, maybe not. So what would happen if you decided to just take some time for yourself? Because the truth is we have to. The truth is we have to. I mean, everyone talks about the grind, and it's crazy, man, because I'm building something with Sean Wells, who you heard on the previous podcast, and brilliant episode, by the way, and I put it out twice for you. Might be, Andy, why did you put that podcast out twice? Well, if you listen to the second one, I explained it a little. iTunes messed up, and guess what? Well, I put it out twice to make sure that everyone got it, because it was such a brilliant episode, and he's such a brilliant person. By the way, it's on YouTube if you want to ever watch it. It's pretty cool, right? You get to know me a bit more visually and Sean, right? The word or the concept grind is a horrible word, and it's been built into our culture and through, again, social media and marketing and stuff, and it's just a horrible word to me. It doesn't create any emotion or imagery, or it doesn't create anything that you really, really want. I've got to do the grind. So I'm putting together something brilliant with Sean. That's as a side note. Because we have to disrupt this pattern, because it drives me crazy. And ultimately, you're stressing your nervous system out. And yeah, just the visuals that you're building in the unconscious mind are definitely not what you be wanting, right? So I really challenge you to slow yourself down sometimes and allow yourself to go into that moment of stillness. And stillness is where we create a new idea, new possibilities. And I could talk about quantum physics around that concept, but it really is. And we have to learn how to be able to let go of that constant anxiety that's driving you forwards, because it creates results. It does. But it doesn't necessarily create the highest level of world-class performance. See the difference? It will create results, but what would happen if you were the best version of you and you were dialed in so clean in your brain that imagine what could be possible if you didn't have that noise or resistance. Does that make sense? So if you are a new listener to Mindset by Design, then welcome. Always awesome to have a new listener. What we're here on about Mindset by Design is about building new behaviors, new ways of thinking, feeling, and acting, creating new beliefs, new neurology, using conscious, unconscious minds, NLP, which I'm a world-class expert at, neuro-retraining, which are my own personal systems, neuroscience, behavioral psychology, with a sprinkle of spirituality, right? Anything that creates true world-class performance. And that's what I'm all about, to build your brain into being able to dominate any business and think like an 8-figure thinker. So I want you to also use this podcast a little bit differently from the others. I want you to use it like a library. There's so much immense content on here. I want you to use it. So go back, play with titles, find out what really stands out to you and pops out to you. Because whatever you're going through, you might want to just flick through the titles and you'll see that one jumps at you. And whatever one that jumps at you, then that's probably the one to listen to that day. Make sense? Good. And speaking of today, let's talk about today's episode, because I love this article on Inc. magazine, and it was by a guy called David Strauss, and it's really cool, and the title's even more cool. So I'm going to play with this title. I love it. The Genius Problem-Solving Method Elon Musk Learned from Aristotle. Yeah, talk about a hook, right? That's a good topic. That's a good title. And I'm going to get more into this concept, but it is a really interesting concept. It's very, very basic and simple, but aren't the best things basic and simple sometimes, right? I do my best with everything that I do to take really complicated concepts and make them simple. And some people out there going, Andy, some of your stuff you talk about is so complicated. I know, but guess what? It's way more complicated in my head. So I make it as simple as humanly possible. Trust me. So we're going to deep dive into that in a moment. And of course, I'm going to make it awesome. And of course, I'm going to make it relatable to you and what you're going through right now. Because what he does talk about is some high-level concepts that the everyday business entrepreneur is not going to be going through, right? So I want to make it more relatable. And of course, I'm still going to put those concepts in there because a lot of people listening right now are doing 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. And lots of people out there doing 5 and 6. And there's lots of people out there who are just working out what the heck they want to do. I don't know which category you're in, but I'm going to jump into that in a moment. And speaking of jumping in, you better make sure that you're heading over to the show notes, because we're constantly changing stuff up. And I don't know if you've gone there yet, but I'm just about to create a new training video on this that I'm going to go live today with. So if you've been here already, you probably want to be going again. This is where you can discover the 3 master keys all top performers use to win big in business, sports, and life. And if you don't know the level of people who has worked with me, then just don't jump over to mindsetbydesign.co, click testimonials, and you'll probably recognize a lot of people. So this is what I put together for you. It's a free training. It's not a webinar. It's actually a 10-minute video that's just there for you for free, and it's going to help you out. So bounce over there, okay? The other links in there, I've got masterminds going on. I've got groups going on. I've got personal coaching going on. Yeah, go and head over there and see if you qualify to be able to have a chat with me and find out, how I can help you create true world-class performance in your business, because that's the only thing that's going to turn whatever business that you're doing, I'm sure the systems are good. I'm sure they work, but it's the only thing that's going to help you scale that business and really create the level of performance that you want is jumping in an immersion process and tuning this brain up so your beliefs, your focus, your extreme ability to be able to keep driving forwards is the only thing that's going to make this success or not, right? So click on that link, and we've also got some other cool things. Make sure that you're connecting with me in the incubator group on Facebook. We've got nearly 3,000 people in there all hustling along, and yeah, I know I'll see you soon. So speaking of seeing you soon, I'll see you at the end of the episode. So crew, here we are. Sit back, relax, and let's go on a little adventure, because I'm going to start off by a quote by Leonardo da Vinci. Always a good place to start, right? Listen, all great acts of genius began with the same consideration. Do not be constrained by your present reality. Think about that. I'm going to say this again, because this is everything. If you understand this principle, then the next principle I'm going to teach you is it's all going to make sense, and you're going to start to look at your business a different way. You're going to start to look at performance a different way. You're going to start to look at that problem that you're going through right now, or you're getting resistance on, a different way. And when you start to do that, the world simply changes, okay? So I'm going to say it again. All great acts of genius began with the same consideration. Do not be constrained by your present reality. Powerful, right? I love that. Think about that. What's going on in your own business, your life, your money, someone's let you down, or you're relying on somebody right now to actually achieve something for you, and they're just not stepping up, or they're not performing the way you think they should, right? So the basic concept is this. Well, it's not the basic concept. It is the concept, and then we'll break it down for you. But it's called first principle thinking. I don't know if you heard that before. First principle thinking. First principle is a basic, essential, foundational truth that is known by nature. It is not an assumption or deduction based on another theory. It's actually... well, it's how you become a true visionary of life, at work, or even in your community. And that's the cool thing of it. A key element of first principle thinking is just because something is known by nature or true in the universe does not mean it has ever been articulated or described by humans. So let's just talk about that for a moment, right? Think about that. There's a first time for everything, right? There's a first time that somebody thought of a new concept. I know that sounds crazy these days with social media and everyone just regurgitating the same thing. And even look at me. I'm reading someone else's article and then, building my own concepts and my own theories and my own knowledge around it so I can teach it a different way. But the truth is, there has to be a first time that some principle, concept, or idea appears in the world, right? Now, understand, it does not mean that you have not thought about it before, or it's crossed your mind, or you've heard it somewhere else. But there's a big difference to it being out and actually being applied or created in the world. So you telling me someone hadn't thought of a wheel before? Of course they had. You telling me someone hadn't thought about batteries before in cars? Of course they had. How many times over the years have you watched something on TV, it could be a commercial, and you go, I thought of that years ago. Right, it doesn't matter that you thought of it years ago. Did you bring it into manifestation? Did you bring it into creation? Did you put it into a business model and put it out there, right? No, then it doesn't mean anything unless it's applied. It becomes a rhetorical question, like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Which The Simpsons answered many years ago, right? That's the sound of one hand clapping. Or if a tree falls in the forest and there's not one single creature or anything to hear it, does it really make a sound? Right? It's a rhetorical question. Well, the truth is, no, it doesn't, does it? Because there's nothing to process the sound wave. I'm answering these proverbs today, these rhetorical questions. Wasn't the idea, but hey, you get the point. But David goes on to talk about something quite interesting. He goes to talk about E equals MC squared, right? And again, if you don't know the principle, it's an equation derived by the 20th century physicist of his course, Mr. Albert Einstein, in which E represents units of energy and M represents units of mass. And C2 is the speed of light squared, or multiplied by itself. What the heck does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what that means. It means that mass and energy is exactly the same thing. So what the concept of first principle is that's a real strict rule that people use in physics. However, it's only a rule with the information we have at this time. And what they're showing even with the quantum physics reality and everything is that it's very different to the understanding of the universe than it was 50, 100, 200 years ago. So it's only the principles that we understand now. It's like a belief, right? Everyone talks about beliefs, but beliefs aren't real, are they? No, they're not real. They're only true with the information we have at the time. It's a perspective. And when we start to understand that about life, then it's really powerful to look at this principle, first principle. Now, guess who made it famous? Again. Yeah, Elon. Elon Musk cited this ancient concept with an interview with Kevin Rose. And the thing is, what you'll probably find is that now they got brought back into the vocabulary, people are going to focus on it more, right? And that's all that's happened. It's been brought into the entrepreneurial vocabulary. So guess what? You're going to find that most entrepreneurs or visionaries, whether it's in business, science, arts, philosophy, would really give you the basis and the understanding, and they'd tell you that first principle is actually an essential part of how they've expanded or scaled their thinking. Again, which has expanded their business. Do you see the correlation with everything about mindset by design? Yeah, it's about building a different perspective, a different version of you. And when you can do that, you can see the world from a very different way. The 7 or 8 figure, 9 figure, 10 figure, 12 figure person does not think the same as a 4 figure person. It's just a different thing. So once you've learned all the tools and skills, or you've got a system, the only thing that creates the difference between success or not is the way that you think. Gold medal or bronze medal, the way that you think in that moment, and being able to control your neurons, your chemicals, your physiology, all of that stuff, right? So when you start to understand this, business and life becomes much, much simpler because it is about scaling you. Yeah, scaling you. I was going to say scaling your mindset, but scaling your mindset is scaling you. Make sense? Well, back to Elon. Seeing as this episode is about him, so let's keep going, because he's the man that brought this to our attention again. So let's look at this first principle concept around batteries, because obviously the guy changed the whole car industry. Yes, with automated cars. Yes, by bringing in real high performance. Well, the fastest car in the world now is what is it, a Tesla Roadster? I don't even know. Does it do it under 2 seconds or something? 0 to 60? It's insane, and it's silent. Think about that. It's a silent car that goes faster than any other car on Earth. That's pretty amazing. And all through batteries. Now, was he the first person ever to think about sticking batteries or making an electric car? No, not at all. By the way, I think the first DuPont car company, I saw an exhibition. Hopefully this is right. Double check this, fact check this. But the first car that was made by them was an electric car, and I actually saw it. And it's got like about 50 battery packs all over it, right? But that was their first car. I think it was an electric car. Don't quote me, double check that, but I've seen the car. And so when we look at this, think about this. Elon's quoted as saying, someone could, and people do say, battery packs are really expensive. And that's just the way, well, it's just the way that will always be, because that's the way it's always been in the past. Well, guess what? They would say that it's going to cost $600 per kilowatt an hour. It's not going to be too much better than that in the future. To put it into things we can understand, this is not Elon, this is me. First principle is break it down into a few different categories, okay? So you forget what has been, you erase what has been assumed, and you ask the question based on the desire for what you want is possible. Think about that, right? So the principle is this: you forget what has been, so you just blank it out. You erase what has been assumed, other people's beliefs, and you ask the question based on the desire for what is possible. So that's what Elon did. And he asked the question, what are the materials that are used by batteries? What are they made up from? What is the spot market value of those materials? So what's in it? It has carbon, nickel, aluminium, and some polymers for separation, and a steel can. Break that down on materials basis. If we bought that on a London metal exchange, that would be, well, each of these, what would they cost? Most findings were that you could get the materials for $80. Think about that. They said 600. He got it for $80 kilowatt per hour. And guess what? Combine them with battery cell shape of any style that you want and model modern innovation within the energy industry. So basically, he took the principles. They said it wasn't possible because everyone was just doing the same thing. He broke the concept down and then rebuilt them, and he got it for a ridiculously damn cheaper price, which allowed then Tesla to actually be, well, not just a concept car, because a lot of cars out there are just concept that you see are all bright and shiny, but they never actually come to market because, again, it's the cost, right? When you've got an infinite budget, you can make infinite things. But trying to bring it to production every day, that's a different thing. And that might be something that you're going through in business right now, actually getting the cost down so you get your cost of acquisition up, right? So you making profit. Is this all making sense? Get it? Understanding this? Good. So I want you to start now applying it. Start applying this in your own life. Start thinking about this. I'm going to run through some questions, and I just want you to really start thinking about things in your own life. So is there something in your life and business that's, well, you're getting stuck with, or you can't get the right answer to, or you know that you want to head in a direction, but the person, the people, the place, the thing, the concept, the whatever it is, isn't quite making sense? So first of all, I want you to, that's number one, principle. Identify the problem you want to solve. What that does from my side is that allows you to become consciously aware of what's happening. This problem could be inside of you, right? It's all inside of you for sure, because that's where ideas and creativity comes from and new principles. But it might be you. It might be your belief. It might be you holding yourself back. It might be you not allowing to trust somebody, or you're bringing in the wrong people. I mean, this is a deep concept, right? And you've got 225 episodes before this one to work it out. But you get where I'm going. So I want you to identify the problem you want to solve. You got it? Do you know what it is? Good, because that takes us to principle 2. And the second part of this is, well, I want you to make a list of all the reasons that you think that this can't be solved. Right? And this could be what other people have told you. This could be just like Elon, the batteries, and it was just other people's interpretation or belief system or values around this concept. So what is it? Are you adopting someone else's belief system? Are you holding yourself back because you're not entering you're entering blue waters, meaning that no one's done this before the same way? Are you still living in a past mistake? Are you still thinking about the future, but anxiety and fears coming up? Are you still, what is it? Or are you kicking ass right now? And because you're kicking ass right now, you're going so fast that what's happening is that you're getting overwhelmed, or people aren't keeping up with you, or you get the idea, right? So what is it that is holding you back? So start thinking about that. Maybe you want to press pause on this for a second. I don't know, right? I'll give you 10 seconds. We can count it down. Dun, 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 dun. Whatever it is, right? We need to become consciously aware of what's being automatically played, okay? So when we can do that, it's beautiful because that gives us something called behavioral flexibility. It starts to open up our filter system and it starts to allow other realities, perspective, possibilities in. So number three is make a list of any or all obvious solutions that you think would solve the problem, but that don't solve the problem adequately. Do you know what I mean? So you've got ideas, because this is how the unconscious mind works. If we give it one path, it will continue that path. That could be like a horse with blinkers on its eyes, right? It only sees forwards. But the truth is, in business, it's about opening and unlocking creativity to get clarity. It's about unlocking possibilities to look at different multiple income streams, or what's happening that's creating blocks in the business, or what systems need to be implemented to bring you into the correct role, or what communication is needed with who specifically to be able to, create exactly what you want. And if you're so driven with the bigger purpose of why you're building the business, then what happens is you will get those answers. But we have to unlock and scale what's possible so you can start to see a different perspective. Make sense? I mean, it's a great point in this article, is that if your core desire is to develop an inexpensive product that is effective, then you might design a new product made of more sustainable, inexpensive material, right? Or completely re-engineer a unique operating system around it. And when you can start to understand this, guess what? It's cool. Because when we have that flexibility, we can get to where we want to go. But if we keep being hard damn headed and egotistical around your own identity, around getting this done, then you're living in fear, and the fear is simply because you don't know what's going to happen next, or you're worried about money, or you've invested and you don't know whether you're going to get an ROI on that, or you get the idea, right? Or you get the idea. A good story behind this is a different way to look at business is, do you know Cheetos? Do you know Cheetos, the crisps or chips, if you depend on where you're from in the world? But Frito-Lay, they had something brilliant in their business model, and I love this as part of their business model. They had an open door policy. And this open door policy was really cool because they would want ideas from employees. Yeah, and that's clever. Think about how clever that is, right? Because normally it's a defined hierarchical system that you then have to go to the person in charge of you to tell an idea, and whether that person likes it or not is, they're going to move up the hierarchy, or they're going to steal that idea, which has probably happened more than once, right? So with this open door policy, it was cool because this guy, Richard Montanaz, well, guess what? He was just a janitor. I didn't say just a janitor. He's a janitor, That's what he did, and we all need those. So guess what he did? In his free time after work, he got his, creative brain on, his mindset by design pumping. And guess what he did? Well, he came back in and went, I think we should create flaming hot Cheetos. Quite a clever idea, right? Is it rocket science? No, but guess what wasn't being done back then? Flaming hot anything, really. It's a new principle. Now you've got chocolate and all the rest of it. So that one decision, that one moment in time, that one perspective change, that one first principle, that one 8-figure thinking, guess what it did? Well, it kind of changed his life. Kind of changed. If you like flaming hot Cheetos, I'm not a fan of them. My niece loves them. I don't like them, but whatever. A lot of people do, and maybe you do too. But guess what he is now? Well, he's happy. For sure he's happy, or happier than what he was, because now he's an executive vice president at PepsiCo, Well, that's Frito-Lay or Cheetos parent company. So he's moved way up the hierarchy, and I'm sure he's on amazing money, and I'm sure he's using that first principle model to be able to constantly advance the company. And I absolutely love this, okay? I absolutely love this. So, helpful? Helpful? I hope so. I hope this has been helpful today. So what's my point to all of this? Now we're wrapping it up into a little bow for you. It doesn't matter where you are. I don't care. Now I care about you, I just don't care where you are. Because one decision can change anything, right? One decision can put your focus in a completely different direction. Everything can be changed if you just ignore what's happened in the past. This is in your head. This is in people's in business. Now, does it mean that we're not supposed to be aware of it? No, of course we are. It's absolutely ridiculous to say that we're not. But the truth is, we shouldn't adopt the belief because what did I say before? Beliefs aren't real. They're just a concept with the information that we have at the time. So do you see by how unlocking you unlock your performance? By unlocking your performance, you unlock your creativity. By unlocking your creativity, you unlock and scale your business, your thinking. And so it doesn't matter what system or business you're running right now. The truth is, we look at the business model, but then you inside of it are the one that's going to create the change. Does that make sense? So running through those principles once more. Identify the problem you want to solve. Make a list of all the reasons you think you can't solve it, right? Get them down. Make a list of any or all obvious solutions that you think would solve the problem, but they just don't solve it adequately, because there's something missing, right? You need to open it up, unlock, right? And that might be where you are in your business. And then guess what you're doing? If the problem didn't exist and you could create a solution that was based on a desire, what would that solution be? So if you blank slated it, okay, and you started from scratch, what would you do? So putting that all together, guess what? That allows you to now think about your life, your business, everything a very different way. And that is how Elon learned from Aristotle this key principle that he's made famous again. So there you go, crew. There's the end of episode 227. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot from it. Hope you're ready now to take your mindset by design to a whole new level with first principle and becoming that ultimate version of you. And speaking of becoming that ultimate version of you, head over to those show notes right now. Make sure you are heading up and hitting that free video training I've made for you. It's 10 minutes long. You're going to love it. And guess what? It's the 3 master keys I've taught to all top performers to show them how to win big in business, sports, and life. And guess what? It's there for you. The other side is, if you're ready to kick ass, guess what? Well, masterminds, groups, coaching, see if you can qualify and make sure that you're seeing each other in the Incubator Performance Group on Facebook. Anywhere else, make sure you're sharing this. Make sure that you're checking this out on YouTube also, and make sure you're subscribing to that. And make sure you're sharing this with somebody, just one person. And if you're a regular listener, then let's give a little energy exchange. And guess what? Make sure that you're writing me a review. Much, much love. And one more thing. Why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.